Making your own sourdough starts right here. You need to feed your starter. So you can see this starter has fallen back down to the level where I last fed it. So take your lid off, check it out. Mine looks great. It has that sweet, funky smell, and I see lots of air bubbles. But I'm going to discard everything but about 2 tablespoons of the starter and place it on our scale. 100 grams of warm water. Great. I like to dissolve that, scrape down what's on the sides in the warm water before I add my flour. 50 grams of whole wheat flour, 50 grams of bread flour. Again, we use bread flour because it's super high in protein, and the yeast that we've grown naturally, caught from right here in our air, loves protein. 50. Zero it out. All right, stir that all together, making sure there's no dry parts left. And then we are going to kind of give our edges a good scrape so that we can level our rubber band to where the top of the dough is. Close it up. And in 6 to 8 hours, we're going to be looking for the rise of this starter, and then it's ready to begin our making of sourdough. It's been about 6 hours, and you can see our starter has beautifully doubled. It is ready for bread making. Lots of bubbles. Smells beautiful. It's amazing how something raw can smell like fresh baked bread, and it does. All right, we're gonna grab 100 grams of that, but first, into a bowl, I am going to put 400 grams of warm water. Great. Next, 100 grams of our mature starter. I like to dissolve this in the warm water before I add the flour. So I'm just doing that with a spoon. I'm gonna zero out my scale. And we're going to add, again, bread flour and whole wheat flour. 400 grams of bread flour and 100 grams of whole wheat flour. So first, our bread flour. 100 grams of wheat flour. And I'm gonna stir that up. It doesn't have to be rigorously stirred. Again, I just wanna make sure there's no more dry spots. And if I didn't have long nails, I'd totally be doing this with my hands. But this fork is working fine, a wooden spoon, clean hands, whatever you like. The dough is really coming together. And I'm not being too bashful with it to make sure that all of the flour has been absorbed, all that water has been absorbed into the flour. This gets covered up either with a towel. This bowl conveniently has a lid. So I'm covering it up. I'm gonna keep it at room temperature for an hour, and then we'll move on to the next step. Our dough has rested for an hour. Now it's time to add the salt. Super simple. Place it back on your scale, zero it out. Add 10 grams of salt. Great. And just about 10 grams or so, or a tablespoon of water. And that's really just to help the salt work its way through. This step you really want to do with your hands. And you can do it if you don't have long nails with your bare hands, just wet them. But if you do have long nails, it's like you're gonna grow yeast and you get to grow sourdough under your nails, which doesn't sound fun to me. So we're not gonna do that. So I am going to just really work this dough, and I'm squeezing it between my fingers. You see that? And I'm gonna do this until I can feel no more little salt granulars. It only takes maybe 20 seconds, but you're really working it, pinching it and working the dough. This next part I'm gonna do with just wet hands, which is the yoga and meditation series of sourdough bread making. So you're gonna lift the side and then fold it over, quarter turn. Lift and fold, quarter turn. It's kind of giving it more of the round shape, and it's helping develop those air bubbles that are so delicious and beautiful in sourdough. So you're gonna do this a total of 8 folds. Now, I'm gonna take the dough and flip it over, and then tuck in those edges. Cover it up, let it meditate or rest for 1 hour. We're gonna do the lift and fold 2 more times with an hour between them, and then it'll be ready for the next step, step 4. Welcome back. The yoga and meditation series of our sourdough making is finally complete. My dough is looking fantastic. I can see big air bubbles in the dough, and we're gonna finish it up and let it do its final rest and then bake it up. Wet your hands in this next stage and pick up the dough so that gravity lets it fall, and then drop it. Quarter turn, pick it up. You're gonna repeat this about 4 more times. Now this time I'm gonna pick it up and I'm gonna put it on the counter. Pick it up, drop it on the counter. Okay, let's go ahead and lightly dust the surface. And notice I didn't put any flour directly on the counter. It's not necessary. It's one of the things I learned about making bread is I was using way too much flour and it makes the bread more tough. But do give it a little sprinkling on the top. And I'm just using our bread flour. Just a nice little sprinkling. Now take your dough scraper and you're going to do kind of a quarter scoop towards yourself. So this is how it looks. I go in around 3 o'clock, I rotate it to 12 o'clock and I pull it towards me. And I kind of catch it without a lot of pressure, but I let my left hand, because I'm right-handed, catch the back. So again, I'm gonna keep doing that. 3 o'clock, rotate it and pull towards me. 3 o'clock, rotate it up to 12 o'clock and pull towards me. I'm gonna keep doing this, and you see mine's traveling towards the sink. Don't worry, I won't let it fall into my sink. 3 o'clock, 12 o'clock towards me. I can kind of scooch it over, I can do one from, 7 o'clock to get it back in the right direction. But I want to be doing this kind of gently, and you're gonna see, just like hopefully you're seeing with mine, that it really starts to form a nice round shape. And it starts to get taut. Right about now, I maybe have 1 more pull, or maybe I'm done. If you go too many more times, the taut will tear, and then you're gonna tear the surface of your bread. It's still gonna taste delicious, but kind of invades the next process of slashing and baking and having that bowl look really flawless. So I think I'm good. I know I'm good. I am going to leave it right here, dust it with just a little bit more flour so that our towel that I'm about to place over it for 30 minutes to rest doesn't stick to it. Remember, the towel you're using should just be like a tea towel. Nothing that's terry cloth because that will stick to the dough. Set it there, leave it right on the counter, let it rest. I know it needs a lot of rest, but let it rest once again. 30 minutes, I promise we're almost to the end. It's proofing basket time. All right, let's fill just a little bit of flour into the bottom of our proofing basket. If you don't have a proofing basket, it's totally fine. A bowl, glass bowl with a towel on the inside, again, not a terry cloth towel, but a cotton towel works just as well. Either way, sprinkle a little flour into the basket. Our dough has rested. It's flattened out a little bit. That's just what it should look like. And we have our dough scraper. I'm just going to sprinkle this with a little bit more flour and flip it over. All right, and now we're gonna wrap a present. Actually, I don't need to sprinkle this side with flour. So take one side and the other side and meet them in the middle. Then the opposite, the top side and the bottom side, and meet them in the middle. We're gonna do that 4 more times from the corners. 2 o'clock, 7 o'clock, is that right? And meet them in the center. 11 o'clock and 4 o'clock, and meet them in the center. And now we're gonna take our beautifully wrapped present from all 8 edges and place it in the proofing basket. I'm gonna put the towel over it and place this in the refrigerator until tomorrow's baking morning. You could also bake it after about an hour in the fridge, but I do like to kind of finish this up in an evening, bake it in the morning so it's fresh for the day. So that's what we'll do. Let's finish our dough. Chilled from the fridge. I'm removing the towel. I'm gonna place a piece of parchment paper over top and then flip it. And it's gonna come right out like that. And now I'm gonna score it. You can keep it really simple and just do a tic-tac-toe board. You could do a cross, but I love making leaves in dough, so that's what I'm gonna do. And I'm gonna show you how to make a leaf in the dough. So put just a nice thin layer gently on the dough of flour. Then make sure to get rid of the excess on the parchment that falls off the edge, because this whole piece of parchment is gonna go into the vessel, the Dutch oven. By the way, it's really important to preheat your oven to 500 degrees with the vessel also preheating inside. So my vessel, my Dutch oven is in the oven right now. It's piping hot, 500 degrees with its lid in the oven while I'm doing the scoring. All right, so my parchment's ready. I have my flour, and the flour just allows the scoring to kind of show up a little bit more in the finished product. So here I have my leaf. I'm making like an elm leaf. You know, my maiden name is Emsley, and my nickname in high school was Elm Tree. And I used to like to do pottery and put leaves, like elm leaves, in my pottery. So now, instead of clay, I do it in bread. So I've just made the shape of the leaf in the center of my round. Now I'm gonna make that center vein and the diagonal veins on each side. All right, so then along the edge, I think it's also nice to do a little score, something that looks like a wheat stalk. So I'm just doing just that, a wheat stalk on this side and then on this side. My scoring is done. I'm gonna grab my vessel. I'll be right back. I'm gonna swiftly drop this in, get the lid right back on, because the baking starts immediately. Into the oven. I keep it at 500 degrees for 25 minutes. Then I'm gonna lower the oven, remove the lid to 450 degrees, remove the lid, and let it go another 20 minutes, and then it will be done.